What's something you thought was common knowledge but actually isn't? Gambling at a casino will most likely result in losing money. The on-ramp is for accelerating to highway speeds before you reach the highway. Holy shit, this is my biggest pet peeve. I'll argue all day long that if you can't understand why it is dangerous as duck to try to merge with traffic going 20-40 miles per hour faster than you are probably going to be in an accident or cause one sooner rather than later. Also, the more expensive the vehicle, the more likely that the driver will absolutely not care about their impact on other people. That there are no tigers in Africa. I was on safari in Tanzania and two others in the truck were discussing how excited they would be to see tigers. I told them there weren't any and they looked all disbelieving and crestfallen. Like I was spoiling their fun. They had to check with the guide. Yes. I had a grown-ass woman on a safari arguing with the native tour guide that of course there are tigers in Africa. And that she promised her kids she'd bring back pictures of tigers. And if she didn't see any tigers she wanted her money back. She was pissed there were no tiger stuffed animals in the gift shop. Even though every other safari animal was. If you made a mistake and embarrass yourself a little for not knowing. No big deal. But to loudly carry on about the lack of tigers because you're on the wrong continent? Idiot. That antibiotics kill bacteria. But won't do anything against viruses. Everyone has the idea that if you get a cold, you see your doctor and get antibiotics. Take some acetaminophen, paracetamol and ibuprofen. And stay away from other humans for a while. That narwhals exist are real. People have thought that I was trolling them by talking about a mythical unicorn whale. How to stay in one's own lane when turning from one street to another. That other planets are visible from Earth. And the sun is also a star. How to use a damn roundabout. Apparently. Alcohol has calories. I had to be the one to tell my friend when she was in her mid-20s that the vodka she loved has calories. She was so shocked and said, "What? I thought since it was clear like water it didn't have any calories." Basic geography. Not being able to point out Turkmenistan on a map is one thing. Not being able to point out the Pacific Ocean on a map is another. AD means Anno Domini. Not after death. Posting on Reddit may mean you end up suddenly appearing in an article on BuzzFeed next week. Africa is not a country. It's a continent. I've seen some Jimmy Kimmel skits where people are asked where certain well-known places in the world are. Like where is Australia? Where is Africa? And they literally can't point to them on a map, or they think Africa is a country. I just don't understand how people don't know this stuff. You are meant to do the tutorial in games. Basic principles of finance, budgeting, interest, debt, saving, etc. Don't pet service dogs. I used to think everyone knew this. Until I got one. Don't pet them. Talk to them. Make kissy noises. Bark at them. Grown as adults barking at service dogs is shockingly common. Whistle. Clap. None of that shit. Do not do anything to deliberately draw the dog's attention. If they are distracted, the handler could get hurt or even die. Not exaggerating. If a medical alert dog misses an impending medical emergency, the person doesn't have time to get into a safe position or take rescue medications. If they have a seizure or slip into a diabetic coma or something because you distracted their service dog, it is your fault. That you can wash blood with saliva. If you're entering a venue that requires a ticket to be scanned for entry, someone without a scanner can't let you enter. The difference between there, and there. The yield sign on highways are there so you look before you just keep going. Possibly hitting someone. Happened to a friend's mom. You have to look at the toilet paper after wiping to determine how much poo is left on your butt. You also have to touch your butthole with the paper. No. It is not gay to clean yourself. You're allowed to start a sentence, even a paragraph, with a conjunction for the sake of emphasis. I've had multiple people try to correct that. And then I'll show it to a professor and be like, this is grammatically correct. Right? And they'll say, of course. If your wipers are on, your headlights should be on. Vaccines are safe and effective. A screensaver is the animation, or blankness, that pops up on your computer when you don't use it for a while. To save your screen from getting burned in. The background picture that wallpapers your desktop is the wallpaper. Not everyone's disability is visible. Just because someone parks in a handicap spot then gets out and walks in without you being able to tell why they're handicapped doesn't mean they don't deserve that placard. That whales are mammals that used to be on land but evolved to swim instead. I had an art teacher that just didn't believe me when I told her that they're not fish. That all cows are female. Male animals don't have milk producing udders. Sean. The male version of a cow is called a bull. Incidentally, I recently learned there's no common genderless word for a member of that species. There's cattle for a group of them, but nothing for an individual. The passing lane is for passing, not for your leisurely drive under the speed limit. That the sex of a baby is determined by the man's sperm. There's gravity in space. Over the time I've met so many people that thought that there is no gravity in space because everything there is weightless and stuff. Gravity has unlimited range, so there isn't even a single spot in our universe without gravity. Weightlessness is basically just falling. While orbiting, you're basically just falling around the object. The Electoral College 2000 and 2016 showed that most voters did not understand how the Electoral College worked. Swans are even more vicious than geese. In Greek mythology, the Titan Atlas holds up the sky heavens, not the earth. That in the US, private companies don't have to give a shit about your First Amendment rights. Oh. I can think a few kitchen related. Before you start chopping onions, wash it or make your hands wet to avoid shedding tears. May not work for everyone though. In a case where oil has caught fire on skillet, don't try to extinguish fire with water. Not long time ago it happened in one of the flats in the building I live in. Wild animals are not pets. Europe is not a country. It's a continent. Oral storytelling. The oldest kind of storytelling. Podcasts and audiobooks are popular modern forms. I made a post in a writing group about the importance of diversity in stories. And someone replied, among other things they said, that blind people couldn't appreciate characters like Daredevil because they couldn't see. So it was pointless to pander to them. Another writer, trying to help, suggested the story be written in Braille. The previous writer clarified Daredevil was a comic book, which is visual. So Braille wouldn't change anything. I don't know how to help these people. Vitamin C is not the same as calcium and vice versa. Two very different things, but sometimes people think it's the same thing. In the United States, only the government, so not private companies, unless acting on behalf of the government, can infringe upon your First Amendment rights. There does not exist a language called Indian. There are 22 official languages in India and there are 1,600 plus local dialects all around the country. None of them are called Indian. When I went to get vaccinated a few months ago, inside the nurse room was the fridge where the vaccines were stored. It was a normal fridge. It had a sign that said fridge for vaccine storage only, do not store any food. I said to the nurse I thought that was common sense. To which she replied, it seems not at all. We've had people, hospital workers, come in and left their food here, next to the vaccines. And not only once, nor twice. The top answers in Reddit aren't the best. They're just the soonest. 3-year-olds cannot yet be aware of their lifelong gender choices and should not be made one thing or another just because the parents have a cause. And 11-year-old drag queen boy should not be doing shows at clubs for men. I just thought this was kind of commonly accepted truth. Turns out I'm wrong. Just because eggs are sold in the dairy section doesn't make them a dairy product. I've heard people say they don't eat eggs because they don't eat dairy. I have often wondered why eggs are sold in the dairy section in us supermarkets. Surely this must be some supermarket strategy and not just up. I didn't know eggs weren't dairy.